One of the things that really interested me before I started making YouTube videos was finding out how other people handled their filming or videography mistakes. I felt like it was very important to me to find out how they did it because as a beginner, I absolutely had no clue how to handle those things. So I started watching videos of the creators I admired the most, people whom I wanted to be like on YouTube. And soon enough, after watching a lot of their videos, I started finding them out one by one. So here are 8 things you can do to fix your filmmaking mistakes. So the most basic thing that you can do is to simply cut out all of the errors and piece together the most sensible clips that you have. Now, I know sometimes it can be kind of hard to think about how it will look like in the final edit, and personally, I do my best to try and get the best take that I can before moving on to the next sequence, but sometimes when I find that I've been constantly repeating the same line for the nth time already, the Philippines has beaten the UP prediction, let's do it again in July. The Philippines has beaten the Philippines has beaten the UP prediction. Let's do it again in July. The Philippines has beaten the UP prediction. Let's do it again in July. Then I let it go and move on to the next, especially if I know that I already have at least 1 to 3 good takes. I know there's enough material already there that I can work with that I can include in the final edit. Next thing we can do is to scale up or scale down our footages. Now, this is a pretty popular thing I see a lot of YouTubers and filmmakers do, because sometimes the footage you end up having just after simply cutting and pasting them together can be a little bit awkward. So one thing you can do to hide that awkwardness is to simply scale up or scale down on a cut that you made and return to your original scale on a different cut. Now, this is also a very effective tool in putting emphasis or importance on a part of the video that you're trying to say. It makes it a little bit more intentional. It makes it a little less obvious that we're just trying to hide some of the cuts. You just be careful not to overdo it because, watching a video that constantly scales up or scales down can be a little bit distracting and can take away from a pleasant viewing experience. Next thing we can do is to add B-rolls. And this is my favorite thing to do. Now, B-rolls are basically supplementary clips and recordings that are considered to be secondary to your primary footage. They help in strengthening the story that you're trying to tell, and they add a lot of production value. For example, if I'm going to talk about coffee, then I might include clips of the beans I'm going to use, me pouring the beans on the grinder, grinding the beans, brewing the coffee, and a shot that ends up with me drinking the coffee. I try to get as much B-roll as I can, because one thing that I've learned is that it's a much better problem to have too much B-roll than to have too little. Plus, they end up filling a library of B-rolls for myself that I can reuse for a different video if I needed to. Just remember that when you're using B-roll, they have to make sense. They have to add to your story. Otherwise, it's just not gonna work. Next thing we can do is to add text or graphics. Now, while adding lots of B-roll clips are great, you can't make an entire video consisting of just B-rolls. So text and graphics can be a good way to break things up. Now, I like doing this a lot, especially for list type videos such as this one that I'm making right now. And I find that something as simple as a basic title page can be a good and effective way to get your point across. One tip though is to try and stay away from ugly fonts or unrelated fonts. Personally, I find that simple sans serif or serif fonts can be very effective. You don't need to use or go over the top with fonts. These things are supplementary, so they're supposed to add to your story and not distract your viewers or take away from the story that you're trying to tell. One extra step that I like doing for these text or graphic clips is add a bit of animation to the text or an animation overlay to the background just to keep things a little bit less static and more interesting. Another thing that we can do is to add a call out text or a disclaimer text. This is for those times that you're basically screwed. You can't put a B-roll on top, it's too short for a graphic, and you have no other clip to use. Sometimes just putting an text text can be more than enough. This helps your viewers know that you've made a mistake. It also helps their attention get back on track than if you were to just leave it alone as if nothing happened. After all, you don't want to be the next famous meme, right? So just simply put out a call-out text, call out your own mistakes, it's fine. Another popular thing that we can do is to add a cutaway scene. Like this one from a video I made and posted a few weeks ago.
So as soon as audition opens up, you'll be greeted by this very alienating interface.
Interface. A lot of the times, it's only when we're editing that we see some glaring mistakes or errors that we missed during filming, and sometimes it's just really impossible to do a reshoot. Instead of stressing yourself out, adding a cutaway scene which wasn't really a part of the original video that you made can be an opportunity to add comedic value, or similar to the text call out, it's just another acknowledgement to the fact that you made a mistake. This makes us, you and me, a little bit more relatable. Now, everything we've talked about up until this point were tips and strategies to avoid a reshoot. But we can't ignore the fact that it's actually a viable option. It's a Hail Mary, last resort type of move. Personally, I've done this for a couple of videos already because I found that none of the 6 tips will work for me. Once because I failed to see that the camera and the lens I was using was consistently hunting for focus. Couldn't see it from the small flip screen of the camera I was using. And once because I've forgotten to plug my external microphone, and so there was really very little audio to the footage that I took. And doing a dubbing or doing a voiceover for the entire video was just too impossible. So that's another thing we can do. One that you try to avoid as much as you can is to reshoot. Now, what if none of this actually works? You put in the work. You've been working on this video for 2 weeks straight, editing, reviewing, everything was perfect, you publish, and then it was only then that when it's online and people have already started seeing it, that you see this one glaring mistake that makes you want to suddenly just disappear on the spot. Do you delete it and repost it again? I say just leave it and move on to the next. It's easy to want to get things 100% perfectly done, but you've got to remember no one really ever is. The more successful YouTubers make mistakes. Heck, even big Hollywood films make mistakes. More often than not, one tiny mistake will not be the determinant of how successful your video would be. You can have the most perfect video in the world, but have 0 to little views. And on the other hand, you can have a good enough video, a not so perfect video, but suddenly blow up on YouTube. Anyway, you can always make a disclaimer in the video description or in the comment section. After all, what's the worst that can really happen, right? It's okay to make mistakes. Everyone does, so don't let it stop you from publishing your work. The best thing that you can do is to learn from them and hopefully avoid it next time. So until then, keep creating, keep practicing, and remember to just own your mistakes. Thanks for watching. Did you find how many mistakes I made in this video? Also, I almost didn't make this video because I have this very big pimple on my face, but I learned a new trick. I can make that disappear in 3, 2, 1.